Hey, Prolific community. Welcome back to the Prolific Hub podcast, a digital archive of all things life and the pursuit of creative entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Aaliyah Cheyenne. This podcast celebrates all of the change makers, way makers, and world builders who are charting their own paths and inspiring others to do the same. We highlight creatives, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and also discuss everyday life topics. If you've already rated and written a review for the podcast, thank you. If you haven't had a chance to just yet, it's never too late. Reviews help tremendously in the podcasting world, so I appreciate you taking the time to leave one. The best way to discover new podcasts is by word of mouth, so keep sharing the Prolific Hub podcast with your tribe. Be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to show even more support, text the show, send in a voice note, or consider a monthly subscription. See the show notes below for more details. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. So before we jump into today's episode, I have to issue a disclaimer. This episode is a little bit all over the place. I recorded it a while back, and as we've gotten closer to the date for it to go live, I've had ideas and thoughts and things that I wanted to insert. And I've done that, but that also means there's a bit of bouncing around. You might notice some differences in the audio quality during different segments as we move throughout the episode. So I just ask that you bear with me. Today's episode is less about creativity and entrepreneurship and more about life. It is Black August. It is the anniversary of the Montgomery Riverfront Brawl, and we are touching on all of those things. We're also touching on police violence. We're talking culture and society and race-related issues. So it's a more serious episode. Although there are moments of brevity during the episode. So I just wanted to offer that disclaimer. That being said, let's jump in. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. So today is going to be short, maybe not so sweet, but real short, real quick. I am just popping in today to say happy Black August. Happy anniversary of the Montgomery Riverfront Brawl. You're listening on the actual day that this drops. It's the actual anniversary, like August 5th. But if you're listening the same week, the same month, the same year, hey, happy anniversary of that day. But in all seriousness, it is also Black August. It is a time of year, the month of August. So many things have happened in the month of August, but Black August originated in the California prisons in the 1970s. Following the deaths of George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson. Jackson was a Black Panther who was killed by prison guards in San Quentin, California on August 21st, 1971, amid a revolt. And it is also a month where a lot of historic and significant things have happened over the course of time. So I actually pulled up this Forbes article that was talking about specific events that have happened in August per records that we have. In late August 1619 is when the first group of enslaved Africans were brought to Virginia. So many people have heard of the 1619 Project. Created and led by Nicole Hannah-Jones, but it is also a very significant year when the first enslaved people that we have on record from that time actually made landfall, survived the transatlantic slave trade and touched down on U.S. soil, obviously against their consent. So that's one significant thing has happened in August historically. August 1833 is when the Slavery Abolition Act was first put in place, abolishing slavery in many British colonies. In August 1963 is when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech, which is also a significant historical marker. Tragically, Emmett Till was a victim of racial terror and violence and was murdered in August in 1955. Hurricane Katrina made landfall in late August in 2005, and in many ways, parts of Louisiana, particularly around the Ninth Ward, have never been the same for a lot of the local people who are still there. In August in 2014, many folks remember that unarmed teenager Michael Brown was shot by Darren Wilson and killed. There was also the Springfield race riots in Illinois in 1908, where dozens of Black people were murdered by a white lynch mob, hundreds of others injured over the span of 2 or 3 days in mid-August. One of the people who was lynched was William K. Donegan, who was one of many conductors of the Underground Railroad. And it's not lost on us that 116 years later, one of his descendants, Sonia Massey, was violently and brutally murdered by the police in her home in Springfield, pronounced dead at the same hospital as her ancestor, William Donegan, and the list just continues. The list just continues. It's like as much as things change, they truly remain the same. And that's tragic. Now, in terms of Sonia Massey, we know that former officer Sean Grayson has since been fired, and rightfully so. And we continue to keep Sonia's family lifted, as well as the countless victims of police brutality and violence that unfortunately continue to be experienced and that continue to traumatize our community. I really pray that our people continue to find our voice, and that someday there is a version of the world where this is not the norm. Because make no mistake, it should not be the norm. It is a prime example of a system working the way that it was always intended, doing what it was created to do, but that doesn't mean that it's a system that we have to keep. And I dream of a world and of a future where this is not the norm, and that in that world and in that future, when they look back on history, when they look back on these times and the times of the past, that they treat this history as something that they would never want repeated again. And I actively support all of us and those of us who are doing what we can each day to make our world safer and better for not just ourselves, but for each other. And of course, a lot of us remember the Montgomery Riverfront Brawl on August 5th, 2023, because the folding chair, the memes, everything that came out of that after was just a time. But also, there was a collective feeling of just victory and relief and revenge for a lot of people when that happened. And yeah, I actually want to play a tiny little flashback to a previous episode of the show where we spoke about it, because at that time it was still very fresh. So I'm going to plug that in right here.
That's wild as shit. Great segue into the Montgomery Brawl, though.
Y'all have seen the clips. Listen, that chair, let me tell you, I've been, I've only been paying attention to what Black people have been saying about it, and only the Black people that fully supported what happened, because like I said in the previous episode, the space I'm in, especially after watching They Clone Tyrone, it's about time we start fucking some shit up and fighting back. So everybody who said that shit, like watching the video was cathartic, watching the video was therapeutic, I agree. I feel like a lot of our ancestors sighed and rejoiced and were very happy.
Word. So now, like, the signal for nigga, I need help is throwing your cap up.
Throwing your cap up.
Okay. So around the world, if we ever see one of our black or brown people throwing our caps up, we got to respond.
Yep.
Find a chair too on the way.
That's not the bat signal. That's the black signal.
Hey, I like that.
Hey, listen. So by now, most of you have already heard about what this was. A black security guard and dock worker was trying to clear.
Co-captain. They keep trying to downplay who he is, his role. He was co-captain of that ship, not security.
Co-captain of that ship. I've been corrected. Was trying to clear a space for a large boat to dock, or a large ferry to dock. And yeah, the small boat of white people that were there didn't want to be told what to do, didn't like being told what to do by this black man. We couldn't obviously hear clear audio from the distance of like what exactly was being said verbally. When you watch the video, you can see that tensions were flaring in that moment. And yeah, these white people dogpiled on that man and tried to jump him. And black people said, fuck all that.
Right.
Fuck all that. Fuck around and find out for real. So,
man.
Yeah, they went to support that man and get all them white people off of him. The black women was going after them white women that was trying to interfere in men's business and fight with the men.
Hey,
black women were clearing them out, so the brothers didn't have to put hands.
It was my man that jumped off the ship and swam. Motherfucking
listen, black people can swim.
Like, you knew it was serious when he swam. Like, yo, and got up, like, came out the water like an Avenger and was fucking shit up, like off bricks.
Facts.
All right, don't fuck with our people.
Just don't.
Like, yeah. Stop thinking that it's okay to gang up. Like, it's that privilege, man. It's that privilege. I was in a professional development last week, and she was like, they asked the question, what is the first word that comes to mind when you think of a white person? And the first word that came to my mind was privilege. Immediately. Like, I was just like, privilege. That's it. Like, your skin is your privilege. Like, we don't get that privilege because we can't hide who we are. Like, you walk into a room and you're automatically acknowledged and smiled at. We walk into a room and it's just like, hi. Like, it was privilege. But that Montgomery Brawl, like, was amazing. And then it was another situation in Detroit where another white man was hurling off some racist words to a black man, and he picked up a chair and defended himself as well. So I don't know. I feel like tensions are starting to rise again because it's that time of the year for presidential campaigns to start. And then with Trump being, indicted for like the 50 millionth time and all this other stuff going on, his supporters, because I'm not going to say all white people, I'm going to say his supporters and his peoples, because if you believe in what he's feeding, you're his people. They just trying to rise up now. Like, and just getting really bold. So this is when we really got to stick together.
Yeah. I think the other thing specifically about the Montgomery Brawl that was pretty significant is I learned after the fact that it's the same like dock and riverfront that a lot of enslaved people were shipped to and delivered to for Alabama. There's just a lot of historical significance, and apparently earlier that very same day, a bunch of women and femmes got together to do like an ancestral veneration to honor ancestors from that same day earlier that day. And I'm just like, listen, thank God they did that day, because those ancestors showed up and showed out through our people in the flesh. Anyway, all that to say, in all seriousness though, the young man who did swim to the co-captain's aid. For a long time, like, his name wasn't initially released because his parents and other people were really concerned about his safety and fear of retaliation. And yeah, like, people are just trying to be mindful of that, because the reality is, although we got our lick back in that moment, we know what white fragility and white violence and white rage and white racial terror looks like in retaliation for certain things. So there are a lot of concerns around that. And I saw recently that the man who did bop the person over the head with the chair really hard, he turned himself in. Yeah, people are raising funds to, GoFundMe to help with the bail and everything else. So listen, if you got a little extra to support our people, make a little donation to a GoFundMe or any other way, like, do that, because mutual aid will set us free, especially in moments like this. Okay. And the other thing I just wanted to flag really quick was it is Black August, y'all. So the fact that this happened on August 5th in Black August is very interesting and low-key exciting to me. So for anyone who doesn't know what Black August is, I'm just gonna read a very quick Wikipedia description. So Black August is an annual commemoration and prison-based holiday to remember Black political prisoners, Black freedom struggles in the United States and beyond, and to highlight Black resistance against racial, colonial, and imperialist oppression. It takes place during the entire calendar month of August. So with that, brawl, what a way to set off Black August. Okay.
Definitely.
Facts. And we're back. That was just a teeny little excerpt from an episode of the show called That's Not the Bat Signal, That's the Black Signal. And yeah, that episode, we talked about a lot of things that were happening at the time. Anyway, I just wanted to honor and commemorate Black August. I wanted to acknowledge the Montgomery Riverfront Brawl. So in the aftermath of that brawl, it appears as though two folks were sentenced, Richard Roberts and Mary Todd. Richard pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault, spent 32 days in jail, had 100 hours of community service plus court cost. Mary Todd pleaded guilty to harassment and was sentenced to anger management classes with 90 days of court cases. I saw something else that had said of the 13 people that were identified and deemed involved, most of them, made their appearances in court but had charges dismissed, including the co-captain. Definitely not our proudest moment as a culture, but also one of our proudest moments as a culture. In that clip, there was also a little bit of a discussion around the political climate, and around this time being the election season, we know that since then, clearly all those indictments for Dump didn't mean much, because SCOTUS is doing everything in its power to screw us all and strip away all of our rights. One of several ways that they've been screwing us is by giving the president total impunity, not just in Dump's case, but also for any sitting president, for any future president, the ability to move like a king. So, do you guys remember that meme where it's like, I don't know what it's from, but it's like this little dog sitting in a room that's on fire, and the dog is sitting there saying, "This is fine," while the fire is blazing around him, and the fire just continues to get worse, and the dog's just like, "This is fine. This is fine." Yeah, that's how I've been feeling for a while. But what gives me hope is all of the folks who are screaming to the top of their lungs, taking actual action, building community, connecting with other people, using their voices and their actions to create the world that they want to see. What gives me hope is what I can do to contribute to that as well. And, all we can do is continue to take care of ourselves during this electoral season. Leverage the principles of Black August, liberation is ours for the taking, and as long as we are on this side of the dirt, there is always a chance for hope, and there is always a chance to do better. So I'm gonna end there with that. Anyway, if you enjoyed hearing that flashback to an old episode and tuning in to Tasia and I, speaking and doing our thing, then I have a surprise for you. I have a surprise for you if you are OG of the pod and have been listening from the very beginning, or maybe you're someone who's a new listener and you started binging the catalog, whatever the case may be. I'm excited to share that Tasia will actually be on next week's episode, and we'll be diving into everything related to her brand and her creative journey and talking more about Trois Quarts XVIII, and I'm so excited about that. So thanks for tuning in to this short episode. I will catch you on the next one, where we will be back into our creative bag and talking about all things creativity and entrepreneurship and life, and y'all. All right. Happy Black August, y'all. And remember, the people united can never be defeated. All right. Have a good rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, friend. If you made it this far, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. The Prolific Hub podcast is hosted and produced by me, Aaliyah Cheyenne. If this episode resonated with you, please leave a 5-star rating and positive written review. Reviews help tremendously in the podcasting world, so I appreciate you taking the time to leave one. Be sure to share this episode with a friend and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the Prolific Hub pod on your favorite social media platforms to stay connected. Consider supporting the show with a monthly subscription, or send us your thoughts on this episode via text or voice note. Find all of the juicy details in the show notes below. Catch you on the next episode.